Hello and welcome to Reimagining Cyber. My name is Ben, I'm producer of the show, and I'm sitting in for our normal host, Rob Arago. He's going to be back next week. And with me, I have our other resident cybersecurity expert, Tyler Moffat. Tyler, how are you doing?
Doing well, thanks for having me.
Now, you'll probably have noticed when you hit play on your podcast button that the title of today's episode is LockBit, the unstoppable ransomware. And the reason it's on our agenda is down to recent events involving the hacking group and the FBI. Tyler, just in case anyone doesn't know, could you briefly explain who LockBit are?
Yeah, so LockBit, they've been around for years. Literally, I would say maybe 4 years, going on 5 years now. And by my measurement, and this is many in the industry as well, they're probably the most notorious and resilient threat actor group for ransomware as a service. They specifically specialized in ransomware payloads, and they're an affiliate program. So ransomware as a service requires affiliates to essentially pull off the attacks. They just provide the payloads and the infrastructure. And there's just been so much drama around LockBit that makes them so unique and different than all the others out there. Everybody suspects this guy's name's Dmitry Koroshev. This guy obviously denies it when he was doxxed. We'll get into all that later because there's been so many back and forths. Seriously, it's an epic saga. They've done quite a bit of changes, evolutions. They pioneered a lot of different tactics that we see a lot of ransomware as a service groups do now. And they're also one of the only ones I know of that doesn't pivot and rebrand when they get any attention by law enforcement agencies. That's pretty much been a mainstay, typical thing that happens is when a group, if you will, get their infrastructure seized because they got attention, because they were successful that year, and they had made a lot of money, usually like Interpol or FBI or whoever. They go after them, take down some servers, and they never catch the guys because they're in Russia and they aren't extradited. But, usually that's a call to that group to like go on vacation, spend some money, pivot, rebrand, and come back as a whole different group, which we have tons and tons of examples of other threat actor groups that are out right now that are previously just other groups. LockBit is literally the only one I know of that maintains the brand, because the brand is what this person feels. LockBit Support is the name of the head guy. They really want, for their affiliates and partners in their business model, they wish to keep that going and that trusted brand, I guess.
Now, let's talk then about the Kash Patel incident. Kash Patel, of course, the newly appointed FBI director. This happened over the past couple of weeks, this development. For those who haven't heard about it, talk me through it.
Basically, on their leak site, so on the actual leak site, their onion link that you would go to on like a Tor browser. This is typically where you would go to find companies that had been breached and where they disclose and share the information that was stolen for companies that don't pay the ransom, right? But they can put anything they want there. He calls it his blog, right? On the blog, there towards the FBI says, "Dear Kash Patel, I wish you a happy birthday. I also congratulate you on your position as the 9th director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and wish you professional success, because it will be not easy for you. You are surrounded by liars, professional manipulators, respected Kash Patel. The so-called agents who are under your supervision are tricky manipulators, and the whole point of their manipulation is to do nothing. But you have to do something about it, Mr. Kash Patel. I have been called extortionist and blackmailer a lot, but I am a worthy son of American fatherland, a son of immigrants like you, dear Kash Patel. God bless our motherland. My whole life, like your life, is filled with concern for national security." But that's just a little bit, basically a taunt. But the whole purpose of this post is basically to say, I want to get in touch with you because I have information that could not only negatively affect the reputation of the FBI, but also destroy it as a structure. And he wants him to be honorable and do a good job. So, reach out to me, and then gives his Tox ID, sort of secure, encrypted messaging services through, Tor and Onion links to communicate with him to get this information. definitely interesting for sure as far as the latest developments. And yeah, we'll see where it leads. We never really know where this all happens. It's just published on the blog, but definitely crazy.
What do you put that down to? Why do you think they've done this? What's their goal?
Well, I think there's many different reasons for this. One, the main goal is to gain attention and main relevance. There have been at least two or three seizures on infrastructure from LockBit support in the previous history, which we'll go into later, I'm sure. You have to remember that the way these guys make money is through affiliates. Okay, the ransomware as a service ecosystem relies on, you have the operator, this would be LockBit support. He makes the infrastructure, the payloads, the leak site, payment processing, all that stuff. But you need an affiliate to take your payloads and use your infrastructure and actually conduct the attacks. So when someone's actually getting attacked by a LockBit payload, it's not the LockBit guy, Dimitri. It's the affiliates. They're the ones taking off and pulling. It's risk mitigation. They're the ones conducting the attacks on victims, and they're also the ones dealing with victims for payment and transferring the Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, whatever cryptocurrency, usually Bitcoin, right? But that's all the risky stuff. The footprints you're leaving conducting your attack, the footprints you're leaving, transferring Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not anonymous. I don't know why people keep saying that. Oh, Bitcoin is just used for, money laundering and criminal stuff. It's like, whoa, no, not at all. In fact, it's the most secure and open ledger system available to date. But essentially, he relies on the affiliates. This guy isn't going to make any money and be successful unless he has affiliates. And so this taunt on Kash Patel, to give you after that backstory, the reason why is to stay relevant, wants to stay in the news, and also likes the back and forth between the FBI. There have been numerous back and forth incidents, and I would say going back almost a year now, back and forth, like literally like ping pong, three or four times with shutdowns, you name it. It's been crazy for sure. And so I think the whole point of this is to taunt the FBI, get into, news because he hasn't been in the news recently, and make sure everybody knows his name because he relies on fame and, the renown. So that way he can attract affiliates. And there is some point to it. I mean, he's had this much attention and shutdowns from the FBI and still on here, still has a leak site, still hitting victims. It's got to count for something. I mean, if you're a criminal looking for, a business model, you want somebody who's trustworthy or able to stand the tests of time and attacks. I can understand it, and I think that's their tactic, to be honest.
You kind of briefly touched on LockBit's history and previous crackdowns. Can you give me, name a few of those? What are the big flagship hits that it's carried off?
Yeah, so massive one was last year. Operation Kronos is what the FBI called it. I mean, it was FBI, Interpol, NHS, like everybody came together. I mean, you got to because they got all these servers and everything everywhere. I think they had some servers all over the place, but essentially, this was the first lockdown or takedown is what it's called. And this happened earlier last year, I want to say March or April. And so the Department of Justice, they basically took over the leak site. So this leak site that you would go to, just where all the companies are usually published and all their information is sort of leaked because they didn't pay the ransom. And they took it over. And then basically, instead of listing companies where they breached information, they did press release. They did information on LockBit support. They did decryption keys, U.S. indictments and sanctions and arrest warrants. They basically gave like a status update on all the damage they had done in Operation Kronos. It's actually really cool, very innovative, and kind of taunty and funny because really, like I said, the policing entities, FBI, CIA, Interpol, pretty much just been getting railroaded and owned, if you will, by the ransomware as a service underground ecosystem has been just running unchecked. Number go up. Average number of ransom payment is, just to give you an example, I mean, just to tell you where we're at, the average ransom payment right now is 553,000. And so it was really welcome to see the FBI finally take this guy down. Everyone was like, oh my God, this is great. Finally, LockBit. Because LockBit had been like, we'd written about, I do a nastiest malware coverage, sort of like a white paper report, if you will, every year. And LockBit has been on it since 2021. So like 4 years now. And they're like top 5 ransomware group And 5 years in a row, that has never happened. Any other group out there that gets like enlisted in the top ransomware, they get attention of the FBI. They get hit, they pivot, rebrand. Not this guy. He loves the attention. And he actually, a few days later, puts brings his leak site back up. So this is only a couple days after the takedown, which was really cool. It was big news. Everyone was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And he's back online. And then he leaves like a note talking about how they breached him. And they're like, oh, I had an outdated PHP version. He basically sort of says that he got lazy and didn't eat his cybersecurity vegetables and didn't, patch his systems. And it was attributed basically to negligence and amidst a lifestyle described as complacent due to financial success, is what he said. But anyway, he patched his stuff, brought everything back online, and then they actually appeared on a podcast shortly after that too. And I'll give you a little excerpt of it because it was a Click Here podcast. They did a good job. They basically interviewed LockBit support, and they basically sort of asked him, like, what happened? What was your first thought when it dawned on you that law enforcement had breached your systems? And he said, the first thought that came through my mind was, my worst fears had come true. I knew sooner or later the FBI would hack me, and now they had. Initially, I felt fear and panic, but, once I figured out how they did it, I started to calm down and began working on restoring infrastructure. And they asked, is it true that law enforcement had access to your tools, dashboards, and even, future versions of your payloads? And he said, that's true, but it doesn't affect my business in any way. I take this as additional advertising and an opportunity to show everyone the strength of my character. I cannot be intimidated. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. He finishes at the end. This is the last thing I'll talk about. He says, the FBI can't make me angry. I love the FBI. Without the FBI, my life wouldn't be as fun. They're just doing their job. So how can they make me angry? Clearly has a history taunting the FBI, right? And no joke, like, I think a week or so after that podcast talking about and taunting the FBI, his leak site gets taken down again. Same way. They use it, and this time they actually dox him. So they give information on his name, and the FBI finds out who they think it is. His name's Dmitry Yurovich Koroshev, and they have an image of him. You can look this up. Looks like a white Russian dude, and they want $10 million of a reward for anything that leads to the arrest and or conviction of him. The FBI at least did give a really good rundown. The NCAA, FBI, Interpol on Operation Kronos. They talk about how when they took down the second time, over 7,000 unique attack builds they had found, more than 2,100 victims, and encryption keys they had found. And again, that was just from the latest infrastructure. They've been around a lot longer, so it's way more than 2,100 victims. But that's just what the FBI saw, right? The U.S. led the list of top 10 targeted countries, followed by Italy, France, Germany, India. Healthcare organizations, including over 100 hospitals, were heavily targeted. There are over 200 affiliates identified, so 200 people basically taking the payloads and conducting the attacks. And only about 120 of those affiliates actually communicated with victims for payments. So not really all of them were successful, if that makes sense. But yeah, absolutely crazy the amount of data that they shared and sort of the full coverage that LockBit has hit worldwide. And they even gave a spread, like as far as industry verticals. So manufacturing was 20%, professional, scientific, and technical services was 16.5%. Commercial facilities was 13%. Healthcare and social assistance was 13%. And then government, finance, information, and construction were the remaining sectors. But really, they hit over 33 countries. And, really, I would say everybody's heard of LockBit.
Moving on then to where we are now, 2025. How is LockBit going about its business now, and what could the law enforcement response be?
Of the back and forth with the FBI and how much money they were making, like seriously, hundreds of millions of dollars this guy has made. Billions of dollars in actual damages has been caused. That was all LockBit 3.0. So everything I talked about, was LockBit 3.0. And now he's saying LockBit 4.0 is released. And he has sort of like an advertisement on his blog asking people, if you want to be affiliates, come on in. He says, you want a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or lots of cash? Sign up to start your pen tester billionaire journey in 5 minutes with us. So if that sentence sounds a little funny, your pen tester billionaire, that's something that numerous groups are now referring to this as. They're calling it post-payment penetration testing. They don't even call themselves ransomware. They literally try and position their business model, and I say that in quotes, as, you know, we are coming through and doing pen testing for you, and then you'll pay us. And not only will you get your files back, but we'll also tell you all the security gaps that you made and issues and faults that you had that allowed us into your systems and environment. And therefore, we are providing you a service of showing you where your security gaps fail, what you need to do to fix it, and of course, give everything back. But that's how they're positioning themselves as like post-payment pen testers, which is just crazy.
We say we're going to rob your house and let you know how we did it because we're a security service.
And then we'll give you all your stuff back, which you
Yeah,
pay us, seven
you pay us
figures.
some money.
So yeah, definitely interesting, and that's where we're at right now. Very interesting that they are still around, and while the FBI definitely made a dent, and disrupted them, it's not been enough.
And how are law enforcement going about their business then? Are they having to change their approach, their model?
Well, I mean, pretty much the gloves are off now. Ever since the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, we've definitely seen a pickup of ransomware. And previously, and this is true, like a lot of people say that, I don't think so, but this is before the Russia-Ukraine conflict, when LockBit support or any other group maybe like hit or compromised a charity or a hospital, the group architects, the people at the top, the payload authors, like the Dimitri, right? They never want to hit those people or wanted to previously. And whenever an affiliate did, because remember, they're not the ones conducting the attack, it's the affiliates. And so whenever an affiliate attacked a hospital or a charity or something like that, they would actually ban the affiliate and give the decryption keys back to the, charity or hospital and say, we're sorry. We didn't mean to actually hit you. We don't want to put lives at danger for that. And there's been plenty of examples and evidence of that actually happening. But ever since the Russia-Ukraine conflict, they don't care anymore. Gloves are off. And so they've been going full force against hospitals, government, critical infrastructure, like you name it. It's anything is game now. And if anything, they don't mind creating a squeeze and pain in these critical industries and services. And so since that development, the past, 2, 3 years, it's almost been like required. Like the law enforcement's got to step up because like national security is at risk now. It's no longer just going after businesses and financial institutions, but they're going after, critical infrastructure and not caring if they basically cause loss of life. So law enforcement has to step it up. And I do believe they will. 2024 was the most activity and success we had seen in law enforcement, not just taking down LockBit, but other infrastructures and other, not just ransomware as well. While they took down Black Cat and others, they also took down Redline. Operation Magnus was a really good one. So Redline, if you hadn't heard about them, they were really powerful last year. They got like 170 million passwords and credit cards in a 6-month period. They hit Target. They got 70 million user accounts in credit cards from Target alone. Massive. But they were also caught last year, late last year, in Operation. So you literally website operation-magnus.com did a really good job showing you how they did it and how they even put booby-trapped updates on their infrastructure. So when affiliates come in for a new update for their payload, it'll actually be booby-trapped and relay information or as much, doxing information as possible on these affiliates so they can try and go after and catch these guys. So we're definitely seeing progress here from policing entities, but it's not enough yet, and we haven't really seen anybody big get caught yet, if that makes sense. I don't know if we will. I don't know if 2025 will be the year, but it's coming to a head. It's escalating, and we can only see more escalation on the horizon, if I'm being honest.
Briefly, then, could you give me some practical advice for organizations, the best practices for ransomware defense?
Yeah, obviously, like cybersecurity vegetables, biggest stuff for all of your important logins. Like, I really highly recommend two-factor authentication, and I recommend using like Google Authenticator codes or passkeys. Google is implementing those over just like the SMS text because it's not too hard to take over the SIM cards and get those transferred to get the text message being sent to them if they really wanted to target you. But Obviously, if you have SMS codes, that's still wildly better than just username and password. Okay, so definitely do the SMS codes over nothing at all. That's a big one. There's so many people still that aren't doing two-factor authentication, and it's a huge help in locking these guys out. Also, updating all those stuff I talked about, right? If any of those things sound about right, like, if you have Linux VMwares like ESXi virtual machines or something like that, or SonicWall, Sonic OS's firewalls, Cisco adaptive security appliances, Forta client EMS, all of this stuff. You have vulnerable configurations. You just got to change the vulnerable configurations. Make sure to patch them. Like, always be aware of when there's an update and patch it, because like some of the most important ones that they were breaching in like 2024, 2025, they were like a year old, meaning that they had like 6 months, 9 months, a year plus to do these updates, and they just didn't. And it was like hospitals, right? Government municipalities that were getting hit where they could have not been hit. And it was like, you were just leaving the back door wide open. So get the low hanging fruit, right? That's definitely the biggest things. And I highly also recommend employing and actually hiring unofficial pen testers. Get a red team on it and see if they can hack you and let you know where your security gaps are, because you likely don't know them all, and you're going to need someone to poke holes and tell you where they are at.
Just to wrap things up, do you think LockBit is truly unstoppable? What do you reckon?
It's a good question. I don't think anybody is unstoppable, but they are in the right country to do it if they wanted to be. The fact that they have not been caught yet, there's $10 million bounties on them, but it is unfortunate because they are in Russia. Technically speaking, as long as they don't attack Russian citizens, their business model is considered like legitimate income, legitimate business income. And so a lot of the people that work for them, like, work in an office building and earn PTO while they work on essentially malware and how to attack people in, America and Europe and stuff like that. So I don't think they're unstoppable, but we haven't seen any reason to date as to why we should expect them to not go unchecked for the next, few years that they have been going. LockBit is interesting in the sense that they haven't rebranded and pivoted, if that makes sense. Every other ransomware group out there has pivoted and rebranded and took a break to sort of drop the tail of the FBI on them, right? Which means there is obviously some scared. They are frightened and don't want that attention. But LockBit seems to like it. That is where I think that could come to bite them in the butt. We'll see though. Like, it has yet to happen, and all these different takedowns have yet to result in him being handcuffed and extradited to America and go behind bars. But if there's anybody who's gonna make a splash there and have huge headlines, it would be Dimitri or LockBit support. So I'm interested to see where this leads. But as far as like my educated guess is no, we won't see him arrested. But I don't think he's unstoppable. But I also don't think in the next few years we're going to see him arrested at all.
That is all rather chilling. There seems to be just so much that is still hanging in the balance. Tyler, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me on.
And thanks to you for listening to Reimagining Cyber. Rob's going to be back with you next Wednesday. Before you head off anywhere, please do subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Goodbye.